So we've covered the basics of renewal architecture in Salesforce. We've covered revenue movement, which is referring to upsells or downsells, churn that may occur upon renewal at end of a contract term. But what happens if a change to a contract is made mid-term? So say, for example, you're 6 months into a contract and your client decides they want to purchase an additional product from you. How do you incorporate that into your system to ensure that you're reflecting that upsell accurately without affecting your existing contracts? And moreover, how do you handle situations where there's a midterm churn if someone prematurely cancels their contract, or if there is a midterm downsell? How do you handle those scenarios? And really, the answer is found in having the correct data model set up so that you can accurately reflect these changes. And it's also found in guiding your users in a way that it is easy and simple to go ahead and make these changes. So the first thing I'm going to guide you through is how to set up the data model to handle midterm upsells. And then after that, we're going to go into how to guide your users through midterm downsells or churn, and how everything will tie together by building a ScreenFlow automation that makes it easy for any user to modify a contract midterm. So let's go ahead and get started. The first things that we're going to go ahead and change is the data model. So we're going to start by creating a new record type for the opportunity object called Upsell. And this is going to be for midterm upsells. And we will relate it back to the opportunity object through a field we will create called amendment of. This field is going to be a lookup field, also another self-referential field referring back to the opportunity object. And we're also going to make a couple other new fields like contract status, which will tell us whether or not a contract is active or expired or pending. And we are going to make a field called total amendment ARR, which will be the total sum of amendment revenue that has been appended on to an active contract or existing contract. We're also going to make a few changes to some existing fields. As you can see here in this diagram, the fields that are highlighted in yellow will be edited and the ones in red will be created. And they're being edited to account for the new record type that we're creating so that they continue to show up in our reporting. So let's go ahead and get started with these fields and data model changes. So we'll start by making a new record type. And before we do that, I'm going to make a new page layout called Upsell Opportunity Layout. So we'll save that, and then we'll go to record types, make a new record type. We will call it Upsell. Give it the renewal process, make it available, and we will give it the upsell opportunity layout. So now let's go ahead and create the fields that we need. So we'll start with the amendment of lookup field. So go ahead and create a simple lookup to the opportunity object. I'm going to call it amendment of. Child relationship you can call amended by. You can make this visible. And you only really need to add this to the upsell layout. And the related list label we will call amended by, and we will only put these on the sales and renewal layout. Now let's go ahead and make the contract status field, which is a formula text field. We're going to call it contract status. And to get the formula, you can reference our Notion ebook here. And this is just checking if the contract is closed won, and if the current date is less than the start date, then it's pending. If the current date is after the contract end date, the contract's expired. Otherwise, it is active. So that looks good. Make it visible and save and new. And now let's go ahead and make the total amendment ARR currency field. All right, so we've created the 3 new fields that we wanted to create. Let's now go ahead and edit these existing fields. So ARR up for renewal, we can start by editing that. And if you want the formula, you can go into our Notion wiki here, copy it over. And what this is now doing is just checking to see if the total amendment ARR field is populated. If it is, add it on to the total ARR up for renewal. And this is just going to ensure that the this field is set up properly, so that when you're comparing it with the actual renewed revenue, you're including all the amendments in that comparison. So that will keep our reporting accurate. Now, revenue movement type, let's go ahead and edit that. So we have the formula here. We're just adjusting it so that it includes upsells, and it's going to distinguish between amendment upsells and upsells, which are increases at the end of year. So if your upsell is just an increase at the end of year, it will be labeled up inc, short for increase. If it's from a midterm amendment, it will be up amend. Save that. And the revenue movement ARR, we've modified that as well to make sure it includes the ARR field for upsells. Let's go ahead and edit this. Save it. Okay. So we've now made all the schema changes for this object. Now I want to see if they've been added. We're probably gonna have to edit the layout here. Okay, let's just go and quickly modify the page layouts. So for renewals, we will move contract status and total amendment ARR into the contract section. And for sales, we'll do the same thing. And then for upsell, let's bring contract status. We don't need total amendment ARR here, but we do want amendment of. Okay, so we'll go back here. So now you can see our contract has all these fields here, and this current contract is representing an upsell because it's a $6,000 increase from $18,000, because it's now $24,000 ARR. So that's where this upsell is being drawn from. If we want to add, say, a midterm upsell 3 months into this contract, let's go ahead and see what that looks like. And I'm going to do this manually first, and then we'll show you how this is going to change things. So go up here to opportunities, click new opportunity. We're going to make a new upsell, and it's going to be NVIDIA upsell. Close date, we'll make it October 3rd. We'll mark it closed won. NVIDIA, contract start date 3rd, term 9 months, amount 9,000, amendment of NVIDIA. Hopefully that's the right one. Let's save it. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so this is now pointing to this NVIDIA renewal. I want to do one thing to clean up this amendment layout. We don't need those renewal fields, so let's just remove them. Can delete this section. And we also don't need ARR up for renewal here. Okay, let's refresh this. Okay, so here's our amendment, and we're adding a $12,000 ARR upsell, or a $1,000 a month upsell to this existing contract here. Now if we click on it, you'll see that this field's not populated yet. The reason for that is that we need to add a flow that will update this field on closed won amendments. So just to do it manually, this should actually now be 12,000. And what you'll see is the total value of this contract is now 24,000 ARR plus the total amendment ARR of 12,000. So on the next renewal, it should actually be renewing against $36,000. And if we click this, you'll now see that the ARR up for renewal is 36,000. So we should actually change this amount here to 36,000 to match that. And that will make sure that we renew the exact amount of ARR that this client was paying at the time of the renewal. So as you can probably tell, that was a little bit cumbersome of a process, not the most straightforward. What I do also want to show you before we conclude this video is how that actually shows up in the reporting. So we just added here this upsell of $12,000 to this contracted ARR changes, and it happened just 6 months after the original renewal happened. So you can see this is where the original renewal happened, which was an increase of 6,000, and then they added just 3 months later another 12,000 in ARR to that same client midterm, even though their contract doesn't renew for another 12 months. So let's see if I refresh this. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how to build for upsells that may occur midterm. One thing that we will do in the next video is automate a lot of this process here, where on a close one amendment, it's actually going to update this field for us on our behalf so that we don't have to manually update it. And then in the video after that, we're going to cover a very complex screen flow, which is going to guide users on how to handle midterm upsells, downsells, and churn with the minimum input possible for them. And that will make sure that your data stays clean as you go through this process, because it is rather complicated, the amount of fields that need to be edited. So we want to make sure that your users are doing it correctly. But our data model is set up correctly now, where we're now able to go ahead and make those changes. So I will leave this at that, and I will see you in the next video.